Hey all, Game Methuselah. Well, I wanted to do another video today because I've been listening to a lot of the stuff going online, really sort of getting involved with everybody talking about gaming. And it's really excellent stuff, but I wanted to talk about my game as well. I love Matt Colville's latest interviews with other people. Something he's always done that I think is really good is he goes out and finds interesting people in the game world and he introduces you to them. And I think that's really great because it allows you, by listening to Matt, which obviously helps drive his numbers, it allows you to find new and exciting people in the industry who can get things that you're going to want to do and see and hear about. And that's really the best of it. Gaming has always been interesting for me since I was really, really young. Because I was dyslexic, had trouble reading. Games were great because everything was small and it was easy to figure out by paragraphs and I could do it a lot simpler. And it fascinated me with all the things that go on in games. Warfare and car race driving and World War I air combat and space invasions and all the things that often you really wouldn't want to do. I mean, things in gaming, if you look at them, often are very disastrous and very dangerous. And I think most people try to be danger aversive. I try not to get myself into too much trouble danger-wise because, I only get this one character. I can't reboot. So I try to keep it going as simply as I can. But the thing about games is it teaches you how the world works. Matt had a thing when he was at Turtle Rock, he was playing diplomacy on the computer with a bunch of his co-workers and getting them into the game. Now, the great thing about that game is it gets played by the deep state secret police services all over the world. It may be one of the biggest, most popular titles because almost every agency doing political stuff uses this game to teach their up-and-coming people how to do these diplomatic things. Which basically means diplomacy is a game where you need to convince someone else to help you do something that succeed in your thing that will likely not be in their benefit. Now, you can promise them something in the future, you can threaten them, you can do whatever. But my attitude is diplomacy is a great game for people who want to get rid of their friends. It's really, really a really tough game. But it's worth playing. It's worth seeing. It's worth looking at. I never play at it because, of course, I put my own spin on it. When I played, I said, well, here's the deal. Somebody would make a deal with me. And I said, well, here's what goes on. If you ever break a deal with me, I will never play this game with you again. Or if I do play it with you, I will never ally with you, help you, or do anything other than hinder you in the game. So, we'll either not play the game or you will understand that you have to be honest with me 100% of the time. Well, guess what? That never happens. Thusly why I most likely have not played this game in 40 years. Now, I'm not saying it's not a great game. It's a great game. It is well done, and it does teach you these things. But that is what gaming is all about. Often, I think the great thing with gaming is it's a fabulous way to do education. I'm really sorry that there isn't game theory classes at school. I mean, I think they should start kids out, at least at high school, if maybe not even sooner, the whole concept of game theory. You don't pout and whine to get what you want. There's a negotiation. There's maybe a battle. There's maybe some sort of, thing that happens, and that teaches you how the world works. Gaming's fabulous at that. It also allows you to do all the things you really can't do. I fenced intercollegiately. I was captain of the Cal State Fullerton Sabre team for the last year of my college. I was really pretty proficient. Now, I'm not going to say I was good. I was reasonable for a college level fencer. And I loved it and I enjoyed it and it was great. But it was a reality of it. Now, I've seen games that simulate man-to-man combat, but it's a whole different thing to get in there and do it because you learn a lot of things about yourself and everything else. And fortunately, in fencing, I wasn't going to get killed, at least hopefully. But all those things should be something that you embrace because the future is going to be something that's constantly changing and evolving, and you need to be prepared in however way. And games do help with that. Mostly I play games with my friends because it allows us to have these great conflicts with each other and then sit down and discuss it and have the merits of it. And strangely enough, these are the people you become friends with and trust because they know the boundary situation is, unless you've stated it like I did in the other game, we're going to play this game as ruthlessly as we possibly can, slaughter you in the best ways we can, and at the end we're going to go have lunch. And that is always the important thing to realize, that this is just a representation of all the horrors of the world or the universe or the galaxy or all of time, and you just hopefully can learn from it, enjoy it, and not have to suffer from it. Now, you look in the real world now, and you can sort of see a lot of gameplay, game theory, gaming going on by everybody. Everybody is spinning, manipulating, lying, cajoling, bribing. All these things are happening in the world. And these are all real. And this is all game theory. This is often how all these deep states who played that lovely game of diplomacy learn their craft. And it's a bit scary. But, you have to then, when you listen to the world or when you listen in the game, you have to listen for what do you believe is truth and what do you believe is spin to get you to do something that is in the best interest of the player spinning you and not necessarily you. And that's where gaming becomes an excellent tool that should be taught. And I always wonder why it's not taught. Because if you were to teach the negotiation skills of gaming and in that, because everything in games is really, for the most part, a conflict. And that's what the world is. We win, you lose, and that's great if you don't want a nice society. In a real world, you want, we to win. Maybe we win a little bit more than you, or allow me to move up the social status and be a little better. And when you lose, you don't really lose. You get some education, and then you go on and get back into it. And that's what gaming is. That's why when my writing partner Steve and I designed the D9-Games, I came up with a whole new concept of the way I wanted the game to work. The idea is the players do everything. The players, there is no players. You basically make your attacks and make your defense. There's no attacks from monsters against you. The monsters just attack you and you decide whether you got hit or not and what the repercussions are from that and the like. And we made it dangerous to fail. It's like, you get into these high level games and you're maybe facing one of our, 8th, 10th level monster. You get hit, you're going to take 16 to 20 points of damage. For a character that has 30 some odd points of damage, that can be brutal. No matter how good your armor is, you're still going to take abusive situations. And then when you roll the double nines, you get an Enlightenment. And the Enlightenment allows you to make up a skill of your very own based upon what you were doing and modify your character. It's not what happens in a lot of all the other role-playing games I've ever made, where I become a min-maxer. Most people become a min-maxer. What do I want the character to do? How do I get the skills to do that? And how do I get my stats to be modified to make that perfect combination of things I want? It's like in 5th edition, my friend Mark and I both made the exact same character, which I thought was very funny. We made a first level barbarian rogue. 1 level of barbarian, rogue, in a halfling. Now, it's an awesome rogue. It truly is. It does all the things you want to do in a rogue, and that 1 level of barbarian in the beginning makes it great, and then super, super roguey after that, you get a great character. And there were a lot of different games. I could name all kinds of ones where I manipulated, modified, and whatever. But that was the most easy for anyone else to go look at and go, oh, okay, I see what you mean. And it's fun. But the question is always the same, and I point this out in role-playing games. You don't want your game to be super powerful or super low level. You don't care. What you want is to have the game the players want to play. If they want to play super high level, they want to play super low level, they want to grind, they want to do whatever they want to do, great. The problem is always the disparity between the players of their ability to play the rules. Thusly why so many people become dedicated and loyal to a role-playing system. The system allows you to learn it, and most people who play these games want to really, 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 really learn the rules and learn how to manipulate them. And that's the case everywhere. We have our game up, on, as you guys have heard, on itch.io, D9-Games, Enlightened, because I wanted to get it out there But I know this game is going to constantly change and evolve. I'd love to do a Kickstarter and have you guys give me a bucket of money. But truthfully, a board book, like if you watch D&D, is going to be great for a few years, and you're going to spend whatever you spent for it. 5.5 D&D right now, I think, is $50. Yeah, okay. If you've got $50 rolling around, great. But the whole point I wanted is a game that people could constantly evolve, and we could evolve it, and then people could interact and say, I like this evolvement you did, or I didn't, or I like what you did before. And you keep and do what you want to with the game. Plus, you're making your own skills up because of the Enlightened, that you can modify a rule and break the rules, because that's really what it is. If you look at, like when I was watching the Olympics, I'm watching some of the gymnastics and some of, all the stuff you see, and you realize these people have gone beyond. Once somebody breaks a record, you realize that they saw the game, they figured it out, and then they went on the way to break the record and make themselves better than most everyone thought was even possible. And you see that evolving. And that's the great thing that I feel really, really strong about with humanity, is that everything gets bigger and better and faster and stronger. And hopefully that's what you want. I mean, what you don't want is, deterioration and descent and into some horrible thing. But again, looking at it from games, that's really how games are. Games are meant to teach you something. And often for me, like I tell people, games made me a pacifist. I mean, I was like, war, gung-ho, all that stuff when I was young, as a kid, I loved reading military history and all that, and ancient history, and it was just great. And I still love to read it, and I still love to do it. But now when I play the games, I have a very visual thing in my mind of how many people are dying here. There was a great game called Nuke War, and it was one of these things. You build up your cities until the nuke starts, your countries until the nuclear war starts, and then you nuke each other, and the last plan standing is the winner. And the more I played that, I said, wow, this is pretty much a game that shows you that nobody wins this game. This is just the last loser is kind of what it is. Woohoo, I got 2 million people left. I won. All you guys are dead. And it's an interesting perspective, and it becomes an interesting perspective on games. But again, I'm going back to the fact of on rules. When you're looking at rules, you want to find a set of rules that are going to show you something you want to learn, or allow you to build a game within that rule framework that you can do to make games enjoyable for your friends, if it's on role playing, or you can have these great challenges and really visual games and exciting games and fun things happening so that you can enjoy it. But in the back of everybody's mind is that you are actually learning something. You are evolving. And that's why all my best friends are people I've gamed with. Because we get together, we game, and then we go talk about the games. And it's like when Matt Koval and I talked for a couple hours on the interview we did, he was asking me different questions about things, but I'm always trying to find out what it is he was hoping to learn. Because, games have become much more complicated now than they were long ago. I mean, you can find many, many games from the 60s and 70s, which are out there, that are really great games where all the things you'll learn are really, really cool, and you will learn about history and you'll learn about all those things, but the rules really are not that complicated. Avalon Hill did a good job at making very simplified rules. If you want to see one, pull up Panzerblitz and buy a set of Panzerblitz and do the scenarios in order, and you will learn how war works. I mean, and it's brutal, but when you put those chits aside, remember that those are people. Remember that those are lives. Remember these are political effects that are failed, and now it's come down to conflict. And conflict, as we can see now, I mean, you look at things, conflict is very risky. I mean, and where we are in the world, they could be terminally risky for everyone, type of thing. So you get a lot of manipulation, but that works. Game theory works, and it always did in business. My game theory was very simple. I walked into a client. I said, look, if I can give you a better deal and make your life easier for you, would you give me the business? Well, it's hard for somebody to say no. So I would. If I could, and then they would give me the business. If I couldn't, I'd say, you know what? These guys are giving you a great job. It's a good company. Stick with them. Yay. And I'd move on to the next door. But it worked sufficiently that I was able to have a nice, reasonable income. because my poor mother said, you're way too honest to be a salesman. And I thought, well, wait, that seemed like a kind of an oxymoron. You would think that what you want is somebody who can walk in the door and trust. I love that I had companies that literally I had a badge. GT Bike and a bunch of other companies. I literally had a badge like an employee, and I could walk in and go into the warehouse and I'd count things and do stuff, and I'd write my own PO, and I'd walk back and I'd say, okay, I'm shipping you these out. These, you need these now. I'll get them to you by the end of the week, and the rest will come out. That was my game theory, because I kept thinking you could actually be that person and do good things, and you could get rewarded for it, and it worked. I don't know if it works as well now, only because I don't think people talk as much. It's like text me, fax me. I just want to look at the stats. So then everybody else's game theory bias sticks in to how they're going to make the decision of what company they use or what they buy or what they're going to go out and find, instead of, having a negotiation of what you want versus what the company can do. And that's kind of how you see everything in the world right now. And it's really interesting, because if you really look closely, you are watching everything that takes place all through history and all through games. Now, I think when you are building your own games, think of this. Just think in the back of your mind, what is my objective? What do I want to do? I mean, we want to get together and have fun. Absolutely. Well, what game is fun for everybody? I recently played a game I had not played in 20 years. And there's now 3 new editions since then. And it was a great game, but it was one of these games that took 3 days to play. I mean, you could not get the game usually done in a day. I only did it one time at a game convention where we got down. There were 6 guys who all knew the game, and boom, we actually banged it out in 4 hours. It was just amazing. I still lost. But playing this game, I saw the great value I loved in the game. It was this nice space battle game, and you're building your empire, and you're doing all that. But again, what I kept thinking about is, well, wait a minute, this guy knows the game way more than this edition of the game, way more than I did, and he's obviously played within the last 40 years. So I wasn't going to win. I just wanted to see how much I could relearn of the game and how much I liked it. And I did. But I found out the same thing that I had found out 40 years ago. It's just too much time. It's the reward for the effort is not there. And that happens with a lot of games, so you'll see that. But in role playing, when you sit down to play as a DM, look at the players you have and think, what is the objective and motivation they want? If you have a lot of new players, this is where a DM can really shine, because you can say, well, what is it you want to do? What are you hoping to see? Do you want to just be this, I'm having a fun, I get to slaughter stuff and it's great, and I'm kicking the crud out of everything, so I got the best fighter in the world? Sure. Or I want to role play my character and feel like I'm interacting and changing the world. Maybe I can convince the monsters that they should be friendly and all that. Okay. They're going to play the game based upon what they want. And that's the one thing about role playing I do love, is as you sit down as a DM, why I've been able to DM for so many years and not really get bored with it, is that every time you play with the group of players you have, and the numbers of them vary, and you may have certain people here today and then new people next time, you have to be on your toes, because the dynamic of that party is going to be very different. I was out because I was out of town, and I had the cleric in our party. They went on adventures everywhere. I got back and everyone was like, oh God, thank God you're back, because we're almost dead. We're out here in the wilderness, and in my game, you don't take a long rest to heal. You have to go to an off season to heal up. Now, your healers can heal you, but they have a chance of not healing. So they have a percentage based upon their power, their skill level, and how well they're able to, God bother. And when they roll, you're going to have hits that go to long rest, you get back immediately, and some go to what we call off season, which means that at some point, you guys all decide, we're going to take an off season. So off season's 3 months. You then you regain and you acquire some new enlightenment that you acquired and some new thing you make up with the DM. And you say, hey, I think I did this and that, and I want this ability to be what it is I want to do. And they can be very simple. Like usually the first one everybody picks when they're fighters is they get a +1 die on their attack rolls. It's like, okay, that makes sense, but you can't duplicate it. You can't duplicate an enlightenment unless you get a triple. So then it takes 3 9s. Well, 3 9s is a little harder to do, because you realize how dice work. And then if you got another one, it'd be like 4 9s. So it's one of those things that the better you get, the harder it is to get better and better in that same type of thing. But you can do all kinds of things and build a balanced character, and that's what we wanted. I wanted the players to run you roll all their dice, because one thing I didn't like in a lot of role-playing games is I'd get to my turn, I'd roll, I'd either hit or miss, or cast my spell, or throw my clerical ability, or whatever it is I did, and then I got to sit there for 30 minutes till my turn came around. Now, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but you guys all know it goes around the table and then suddenly gets to the DM, and the DM, well, he now has the circus. So the next 15 minutes, you're going to be the DM running all his monsters, throwing his spells, doing everything like that. And that's fun. It's interesting, but it makes for a slower game. And a game where I often feel the players do not have a chance to become as directly interactive in the goings on of the game. And we're finding that to be the case. What I really have liked is a lot of people then get much more opinionated in how reality works. They say, well, why can't I do this or that? Well, you can. I mean, there's no wrong answer. I want to run 30 feet, leap in the air with my stake, and try to stab this vampire in the heart. Okay, that's really difficult. So you're going to have multiple D9s in a difficulty. So you're saying, okay, I've got 3 positive and 2 negatives. Well, okay, that's one die positive. So I get 1 extra die. So I do my 2 die, which essentially means a 3-die roll. Standard rolls 2 die, and things like that. But you can see we're modifying the probabilities a different way. I mean, it's the same as all other games. They're modifying things and showing you things, how you get better, what you get. We're doing the same thing. Instead of while your stats get better and your numbers get better, also the number of dice you gather get to add become more. And then if you're always picking the 2 best dice, if you're a positive roll, or the 2 worst die, if you're a negative roll, it makes it for, well, I can try this, but I'm going to roll 3 dice and pick the worst 2. I don't know if I want to do this, especially if it's a matter of leaping a cliff, because, well, if I blow this die, the complications might be bad. And that's how gaming I see and how reality works. And I think it works great in an RPG. Plus the time factor. Once the players know the game, it goes really smooth. But that's very common in many games. Once players know how they're playing it, they become a game where they can really zip through it. You don't need a long game. The only thing with role-playing that always happens is lots of table talk, and the table talk always eats up time. I mean, people wanted me to do videos on our game, and I kind of want to do that, and I mentioned it to the people, and they're like, yeah, we want to do it. But last time I did one, it was a 4-hour video that I was able to shave down to 1 hour and 10 minutes, because the rest of the time was always some kind of table talk going on that I didn't think was going to be beneficial for the people watching videos to learn from, so I didn't. But I think you guys need to think when you're looking at games, what am I getting out of this? What am I learning? And not just bring your favorite game down to the game club because you think, I'm going to kick everybody's butt in this game. I see people do it. It's okay. And I don't mind, because the one thing is they usually know the game really well, so they're going to teach you through the way they play and hopefully telling you the rules how to play this game better. And that's a great way to have a learning curve on a game you want to play and go up. It's like, Speed Circuit's a great game. I love it. It's an ancient old game. And you design your cars at the beginning with a number of points. And usually you get 5 points. Well, when I play, I take 4 points, or I'll take 3 points, depending on how new the players are. So I know I'm not going to win, but I can still be effective because I know the game well. So they're there, and then the guys win. They're all happy they beat me. And it's like, yeah. But my objective was the same. I taught them the game. And they enjoyed the game because, of course, they won, or they did well. And, that made it a great way to teach and learn games for people. Is that, I always tell people, if you're a DM and you're running games, never win the first game you're teaching. If it's RPG, your job is to help these new players who are less effective say, well, what is it you want to do? What is it you're thinking of doing? And that is really effective. But I love listening to the people out there now. I think that we are in that position in the world where I think the games are getting better. The only fear I have is the medium that are going to be used to be the games scares me a little bit, with the idea that eventually people will all be sitting home on their screens and using their game mats and stuff, which I've done and I like, but you're not going to have that human connection. And I still think the biggest value in gaming is to build relationships with people. And I know I'm getting boring with that. You've heard it. So I'll try to stop, but I'm sure I'll fail. But I just want to get on this and talk about that, because as I listen to this guy talking about all these games that he reviews and then plays like 4 or 5 episodes, And he made a really great comment. He says, some RPG games that I play, we look at it, I say, we're only going to play 6 episodes, or we're going to play four episodes, or we're going to play 8 episodes, and then we're going to quit. And I thought, what a great idea. I mean, he mentions Deadlands. Deadlands, one of my favorite RPGs, but it's Old West. It's done with a real deck of cards. It's very cool. And we played it, but in fact, we loved it so much, we started playing the Great Rail Wars, which was the miniature battle rules. So we had a lot more things we could build elements. But it's not necessarily a game that people can relate to as well. So it's hard to have a game that's hard to relate to. And everyone relates to D&D because D&D's there. And everyone can relate to certain games because they've seen it and played it a lot. But Old West, though it was very colorful and beautiful and the miniatures were nice, I loved everything about it. I still do. But it was hard for people to stay attention driven when I don't understand why, what I have to make the best deck of cards, I get the best hand, I don't really play poker, whatever it is they didn't have the skill set for, they may not want to learn. And that sometimes is often to be the downfall of many a game, is how interesting can you make the game for the players so that they want to play games with you. And that's what I try to do. And many times I've succeeded, many, many, many times I've failed. But it's the nature of life. You learn more by your failures often than you do by your successes. So I think that's the thing to remember when you're out there doing games. Learn your role in the game. And whatever you want to do, bring it up. My friend Mark, he's a really good gamer. He knows all the rules. But he always wants to role play. He wants to get in and play some character that totally is going against the rules or doing something interesting, which I find fascinating. Now, we got in a big argument about it, and Craig stopped running the campaign because Mark and I got in a big argument about it because I said, why are you doing that? It's just dumb. And, and it's like, okay, that was most on me, not on Mark. He was just trying to keep in character. And I, of course, I said, we only got so many hours. Let's kill these monsters and be done with it. Well, bad me. But that happens, and it's going to happen to you too. But learn from what you don't know and evolve into the games you do. I told somebody when I was back in Virginia, my friend Don has a giant game room filled with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of titles of different games from all eras. And I said, well, there's 50 games up there. I'd love to play. And he goes, well, pick one. I said, yeah, well, the problem is I'm going to pick something in the top 5 or 8 of my favorite games. I'm not going to pick game number 37. And that's always the problem. I need to find out, why I came back to running Stargard. I mean, a game I hadn't played in such a long time because I had some people who had played it. I love the miniatures. I love the game. And I love the fact that it's 50 years old. And suddenly I got people excited in it. We were playing it, having a great time with it. We're still playing with it. And I mean, 3 decades passed without me even looking at the minis. And, you realize that that's what happens because you get into the new shiny pretty and then we go from there. So I know I'm letting this thing ramble on and I'm sorry about that, but I wanted you guys to get focused on the concept of what do you think you do in the game and what do you think everybody else does and how can you help them with what they do? How can you help the DMs? How can you help the players? How can you help them evolve in the game that they want to learn? That keeps people in the game. I mean, we got into a game with my friend's wife, who's really a good gamer, and we taught her a game called Upfront, which we loved, and she liked it, and then we started taking her to cons. And I remember her first con, and she was like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. I don't know how these guys are going to tear me up. And she sat down, and I got into the semifinals, and I go, did you make the finals? And she goes, yeah, I made the semifinals. We're ready to go. I said, cool. She goes, these guys are bums. And I was like, okay. You do understand you were playing with 2 guys who, were very, very, very competent in this game. And we taught you all the competence we could. And then she went and beat her husband for the national championship. So, you got to learn what you're doing and realize maybe sometimes you might teach somebody to surpass you. But as he said, how is that not the greatest thing in the world that she's now better than me? That's what you want. You want the student you teach to exceed what you're capable of doing. And that's life. I mean, everyone wants their kids to be better than they are and have a better life. At least I hope they do. So anyway, until we have a chance to speak again, I hope I did not bore you to death with this. If you get a chance, go on to itch.io, look at D9-Games. Enlightened, and what you'll find is even if you don't want to buy the game and you give us the $10 on the PDF, which, by the way, as like I say, as the game evolves, it'll just keep evolving with the game. Go look at our playtests. We got our playtest stuff up there, and you can look at it and at least get the ideas of what we're looking to do and why, and think about why we were looking to do it this way. Because I wanted to have something that was very different from what was out there. We don't want the mechanics to be the same. We want the mechanics to be different. We want the feel of the game to be different. And you might look at it and say, you know what? Because this is what Mark's done. He's looked at it, he loves it, and then he goes, but I think it could be better if you do this. And that's the point. Then it's like, you've taken the essence of the game and you've now modified it so you like it better and your group likes it better. And that is what you want. And truthfully, in role-playing, that's what original D&D was. When we played in the mid-70s, I must have played 5 or 6 different versions of Zero D&D. Caltech's version and the different books that came out and all the different components that came out, plus the one we modified, plus what we put from chainmail. All those things make the game evolve to the point that they become a great game for your group. And then you just have to know the game as it is so that you can go to cons and play. So until we have a chance to speak again, hopefully at a game convention, fight me, devils fight for I hate peace, game on, and be good with each other.